That spin, the hesitation dribble. No, MJ stopped dead. Shadows from the Charlotte arena stretching long across the alley. The homeless man clutched a worn basketball like life itself. Who was he? Michael Jordan paused. The familiar pre-game buzz from the Spectrum Center behind him, fading into a dull roar as his focus narrowed on the scene unfolding in the grimy service alley just off Trade Street. It was a jarring juxtaposition. The gleaming arena, a temple built on his legacy, and this pocket of urban despair tucked away just steps from its entrance. The man huddled near overflowing dumpsters looked like countless others swallowed by the city's shadows, clothes layered despite the Carolina humidity, face obscured by grime and a tangled beard, body slumped in weary resignation. But the basketball, that was different. It was old, the leather cracked, the logos faded almost, to oblivion. Yet the man held it with an odd reverence, fingers instinctively finding the worn seams. And the way he just absently spun it on one finger, followed by a brief, almost unconscious hesitation, dribble against the cracked pavement before pulling it back protectively. It was a specific sequence, a rhythm drilled into muscle memory, a rhythm MJ hadn't seen executed with that exact cadence, that specific subtle hitch, since his own raw beginnings. An icy trickle of disbelief snaked down Jordan's spine. Impossible. It had to be a coincidence, a trick of the light, or his own memory playing games. Famous faces attracted attention. Stopping wasn't always wise. Security protocols, learned over decades of intense fame, screamed caution. But the image of that hesitation dribble, so specific, so personal, held him rooted to the spot. He saw a couple walk past the alley entrance, deliberately averting their eyes, quickening their pace. He saw a delivery truck rumble past, the driver not even glancing towards the huddled figure. Invisibility, the cruelest cloak the city offered. Jordan made a decision, overriding years of practiced detachment. He took a deep breath, adjusting the brim of his cap, and stepped into the alley's shadowed mouth. The air immediately grew thicker, heavy with the stench of stale garbage and neglect. The man looked up as Jordan approached, his eyes initially vacant, clouded with hardship. Then, as Norris drew closer, recognition flickered, quickly followed by wariness, maybe even a trace of fear. He hugged the basketball tighter, pulling his knees towards his chest, making himself smaller. "Rough day?" Jordan asked, keeping his voice low, neutral. He stopped a respectful distance away, careful not to loom or intimidate. The man didn't answer immediately. He just watched Jordan, his eyes narrowed slightly, assessing. "Every day's rough," he finally mumbled, his voice raspy, unused. "Just trying to stay out of the way." "Saw the ball?" Jordan nodded towards the worn sphere. "Looks like it's seen better days. Like its owner, maybe?" He kept his tone light, trying to build a fragile bridge. The man flinched slightly at the directness but didn't pull away completely. He ran a hand almost lovingly over the cracked leather. "She's been with me a long time," he said, a flicker of possessiveness in his voice. "Seen a lot." "Played much?" Jordan asked casually. The man shrugged, a non-committal gesture. "Used to. Long time ago." He wouldn't meet Jordan's eyes now, focusing intently on the basketball seams. Jordan noticed the man's hands. Despite the grime, the fingers were long, tapered. The knuckles looked slightly swollen, perhaps from arthritis or old injuries, but there was an undeniable grace in the way they cradled the ball, an instinctive familiarity that spoke volumes more than his terse words. Who was this guy? The familiarity wasn't just the dribble. It was something in the set of his shoulders, maybe the shape of his head, obscured as it was by matted hair and the beard. It plucked at a distant chord in Jordan's memory, a tune he couldn't quite name. He felt a strange compulsion to understand, to connect the disparate pieces, the skilled hands, the veteran's ball, the specific dribble, the current despair. "Look," Jordan said, making a decision. I'm heading over to the arena diner for a bite before the game traffic gets crazy. Let me buy you a meal. No strings, just food. He expected refusal, suspicion. Offers of help were often suspect on the streets. The man looked up again, his eyes searching Jordan's face intently. He saw the fame, yes, but perhaps he also saw the genuine curiosity, the flicker of recognition that Jordan himself didn't fully understand yet. He hesitated for a long moment, glancing down the alley as if expecting someone, or perhaps just weighing the risks. Finally, with a weary sigh that seemed to expel years of hardship, he gave a slow, almost reluctant nod. "Okay," he rasped. "A meal sounds okay." Getting him to his feet took effort. The man moved stiffly, his joints protesting. Norris offered a steadying hand, which the man accepted hesitantly after a moment. The brief contact sent another jolt. Through Jordan, the man's grip, though weakened, had an underlying strength, a specific pressure pattern that felt known. As they walked slowly out of the alley and towards the arena entrance, attracting curious stares from passers-by, Jordan kept the conversation light, asking generic questions about how long the man had been in Charlotte, trying to draw him out without probing too deeply into painful territory. The man, who gave his name only as Ben, remained mostly monosyllabic, his eyes constantly scanning, absorbing details of the bustling street with that same unsettling vigilance Norris had noticed earlier. Inside the bright, clean diner frequented by arena staff and occasional players, the contrast between Ben's appearance and the surroundings was stark. People stared openly now. Jordan ignored them, guiding Ben to a quiet booth in the back corner. He ordered generously, burgers, fries, milkshakes, telling the slightly wide-eyed waitress to put it all on his private account. Ben ate with a quiet intensity, not ravenously, but with the focused appreciation of someone whose next meal was never guaranteed. He kept the worn basketball tucked securely between his feet under the table. As Ben ate, Norris watched him, searching his memory banks, flipping through faded mental images from his past. Laney High School, Wilmington. The early days, raw talent, endless hours spent honing his craft on cracked asphalt courts and dusty gym floors. Who had that hesitation dribble? Who held the ball exactly like that? It wasn't a coach's formal instruction. It felt more organic, a signature move learned, perhaps, from someone less official. Someone local? "You from Carolina originally, Ben?" Jordan asked, trying a different angle. Ben paused, mid-bite, his eyes wary again. "Yeah," he admitted cautiously. "Down east, near the coast. Wilmington." Jordan felt a cold certainty begin to form. The timing, the location, the move. It was coalescing into an impossible, deeply unsettling possibility. "Laney High?" Jordan asked, his voice barely a whisper, afraid of the answer. Ben froze completely. The half-eaten burger remained suspended in his hand. He stared at Jordan, his eyes wide now, not with fear, but with dawning, horrified recognition, mirrored in Jordan's own expression. The layers of grime, the beard, the years of hardship couldn't completely mask the underlying bone structure. The specific shape of the eyes that Jordan now suddenly, vividly remembered from countless hours, spent in a dimly lit high school gym decades ago. This was the midpoint twist, the gut punch of revelation. This wasn't just a homeless veteran holding a basketball. This was someone intrinsically linked to Jordan's own origin story. The vague familiarity sharpened into painful focus. "Mr. Washington?" Jordan breathed, the name feeling alien and yet intimately familiar on his tongue. Leroy "Pops" Washington. Not a coach, not a teacher. He'd been the quiet, unassuming night janitor at Laney High back then. A man who often stayed late, who'd turn a blind eye when a skinny, basketball-obsessed kid named Michael Jordan snuck back into the gym after hours for extra practice. Pops. Washington, who'd played some serious ball himself back in his day, local legend stuff, before injuries and life sidelined him. Pops Washington, who'd patiently rebound for hours, who'd taught MJ that tricky hesitation dribble, the one meant to freeze defenders just long enough for a blow-by, who'd offered quiet words of encouragement when coaches sometimes overlooked the raw potential, who'd given him. Jordan's eyes shot down to the basketball tucked under the table. Could it be? The ball, Jordan said, his voice strained. Where did you get that ball? Ben, Pops Washington, slowly lowered his burger. He reached down and picked up the basketball, cradling it gently in his lap. His gaze was distant now, lost in memory. Found it, he murmured evasively. Then, he seemed to reconsider, looking directly at Jordan, a flicker of the old pride, the old connection, surfacing through the fog of hardship. Nah, he corrected himself, his voice gaining a little strength. Didn't find it. I kept it. He turned the ball slowly, revealing a spot where the faded logo was almost entirely gone, replaced by smooth, worn leather. This was the one, Mike, he said softly, using the name he'd always used back then. The night you finally beat me one-on-one. After months of trying, you were so damn happy. Said you were gonna rule the world. He managed a weak, watery smile. Gave this to me after. Said, hold on to this, Pops. It's gonna be worth something someday. Jordan stared at the ball, then at the man holding it, a flood of memories overwhelming him. Late nights in the empty gym, the squeak of sneakers on polished wood, Pops's quiet wisdom, his deceptively skillful moves learned on gritty outdoor courts, not in formal coaching clinics, the constant encouragement. The belief he'd shown when Jordan himself was still plagued by doubts. He remembered that night, the hard-fought game, the triumphant feeling, the impulsive gesture of giving Pops the game ball. A gesture made by a cocky teenager, full of dreams, never imagining the diverging paths their lives would take. How had Pops Washington, the kind, steady presence from his formative years, the man who'd offered quiet mentorship and access to the gym that became his sanctuary, ended up here, homeless, broken, clutching that same basketball like a relic of a forgotten life, while Jordan himself lived in a world of unimaginable fame and fortune, his name synonymous with the very arena casting its shadow over the alley where Pops now sought refuge. Guilt washed over Jordan cold and sharp. Had he forgotten? In the whirlwind of college stardom, the NBA draft, championships, global fame, endorsements, ownership, had he simply forgotten the humble janitor who'd played a small but crucial role in his ascent? Had he ever reached back, ever checked in, ever acknowledged that early debt? He searched his memory frantically, shame churning within him. He couldn't recall reaching out, couldn't recall even thinking about Pops Washington for decades. The hidden truth wasn't just the man's identity, it was Jordan's own failure to remember, his own unwitting neglect of someone who had shown him kindness when he was just a kid with a dream. Pops, Jordan began, his voice thick with emotion. What happened? How did you— Pops Washington waved a dismissive hand, cutting him off, uncomfortable with the sudden shift, the intensity of Jordan's rediscovered memory. Life happens, Mike, he mumbled, looking away again, retreating back into his shell. Bad breaks. Injury flared up. Couldn't work steady. Lost the house. Daughter got sick. Medical bills. One thing leads to another. He shrugged, a gesture of grim acceptance. Been on the streets a while now. Charlotte's warmer than some places. He wouldn't elaborate further. The pain and perhaps the shame too raw. But the fragments painted a familiar, tragic picture of misfortune, systemic gaps, and a slow slide into invisibility. Jordan sat there, stunned into silence for a long moment, the weight of his forgotten past pressing down on him. The bustling diner, the impending game traffic, The world outside seemed to fade away. It was just him, Pops Washington, and the worn basketball connecting them across a chasm of years and wildly divergent fortunes. He knew what he had to do. This wasn't about charity anymore. This wasn't about a quick meal or a handout. This was about rectifying a profound oversight. This was about honoring a connection he should never have allowed himself to forget. "Okay, Pops," Jordan said finally, his voice firm now, filled with resolve. "Listen to me. This," he gestured vaguely at Ben's current state, "ends now. Today." He pulled out his phone, ignoring Pops's sputtering protests. He didn't call for a limo or offer a wad of cash. He made calls to his personal assistant, to the head of the Hornets Community Relations Department, to a contact at the local VA Outreach Center specializing in homeless veterans. Pops had served briefly before his injury. And to a trusted physician. He spoke quietly but with undeniable authority, arranging immediate, comprehensive support. Temporary housing tonight, in a clean, safe hotel room. A full medical evaluation tomorrow. Enrollment in VA programs. Connection with social workers to navigate housing assistance, benefits. A job offer within the arena's operations staff, utilizing Pops's past skills, offering dignity and purpose, if and when he was ready. Pops listened, his initial protests fading into stunned silence, tears welling up in his tired eyes, tracing clean paths through the grime on his cheeks. He looked overwhelmed, disbelieving. "Mike, you don't have to—" "Yes," Jordan interrupted gently but firmly. "I do. Took me too damn long to recognize you, Pops. Won't make that mistake again." He reached across the table, not offering pity, but placing a hand firmly on the older man's forearm, a gesture of connection, of promise. He looked down at the basketball still cradled in Pops's lap. "You held on to that ball," Jordan said, his voice thick with emotion. "Now let me help you hold on to something more." The resolution wouldn't be instantaneous. Pops Washington's journey back would be difficult, fraught with the physical and emotional scars of years of hardship. But the cycle of invisibility was broken. The forgotten connection was re-established. The hidden truth, unearthed in a grimy alley by the chance recognition of a specific hesitation dribble, had forced Michael Jordan to confront his own past, reminding him that legacies are built not just on championship rings and global fame, but on remembering the quiet kindnesses received along the way, especially from those the world has forgotten. How do our past connections, even those seemingly small or long forgotten, continue to shape our present? And what responsibility do we have to honor those who helped us on our journey, regardless of where life has taken them? Have you ever reconnected with someone from your distant past who played an important role, only to find their circumstances dramatically changed? Share your reflections in the comments and subscribe for more stories about unexpected reunions and the enduring power of memory.